Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Ace, and I'm back with another reaction video. Here we go. Alright, so after having completed the probe into Queen 2, the second studio album by Queen, it's now time to recap, rate, and assess the complete body of work. So Queen 2 is ambitious and striking. It's a call to arms of what Queen can do and a testament of their talent and what they're capable of. The first album shows how hungry they were and kind of gives like a blueprint of what they had in mind going forward, while this album gives what I presume is the first realization of it. You can hear their growth and desire to move forward. Tonally, Queen 2 tends to be dark and ethereal with sort of a quasi Hitchcock meets the Thornbirds type of a vibe. You know, even the lighter moments have a sort of a uncanny goth-like sensation. Freddie, Brian, and Roger all vocally improved from Queen 1973, showing more range here with even tighter harmonies. Furthermore, each member ups their game with their designated instrument. Brian's guitar executions are stunning, and I love how he would use multi-track arrangements to create bigger sounds and to present multiple arrangements at once. And I gotta clap it up for Rogers keeping up everything afloat with his drumming. Considering how intricate the outline of many of the songs were, that was no small feat. Unlike the first album, which I think has more of a commercial tinge to it with songs that had a greater potential to be singles, Queen 2 comes off like a dual concept album and is a more united body of work. The music isn't as easily cut from the track list. Frankly, it loses something if you don't listen to it from start to finish, which is what I found out by doing the individual reactions to each song.
She's got to be the loser in the end. She's got to be the loser in the end.
So I went in wanting to like the song because as much as I'm sold on frontman Freddie, it's still an interesting treat to hear a Queen song that features another member in the lead. That said, while I enjoy the rhythmic and bluesy arrangement of this track, lyrically and thematically I find it underwhelming. Roger's gruff lead vocals and stimulating high harmonies just couldn't mask the song not having much of a melody and being a sort of an odd premise. You know, it's great to acknowledge Mom, but are we acknowledging her for her sacrifice, or are we scorning her for being a domineering tyrant? The song really can't make up its mind in that regard. I look forward to the next Roger-led number and hope that it wins me over as much as Modern Times Rock and Roll did, but this one kind of leaves me cold. So Procession is an epic instrumental and a terrific way to start the album. Brian's stirring guitars are a masterclass in rock excellence. The rousing intro is arranged in a way that makes it sound very stately and highbrow. It let us know that we were in a fresh new musical chapter that was going to be sturdier and more urbane. Funny How Love is pleasant and likable with a thriving and colorful sound and an endearing sing-along vibe. After the peak of the March of the Black Queen, this acts as a tonal and virtual cigarette to bring the listener back down to rationality. It was a bit of a relief to hear something from Freddie that was more casual and light. Lyrically, it's repetitive. It doesn't push forward the fantasy or art-themed narrative of Side Black, and it kind of sits uncomfortably amongst the rest of the songs, but it also soaks up enough of the energy from those other songs to not be totally out of place. You know, it's not a standout moment on the album, but it is a nice song.
Come tonight, come to the other side. Come to Ogre Battle.
Ogre Battle is an extraordinary and very original piece of music. The subject matter is unusual while the arrangement is inventive and elaborate. It seems to feature an early metal aesthetic, which makes it that much more interesting. That said, perhaps it's a bit too peculiar. A lot of the songs on Side Black are idiosyncratic, leaving the listener to have to tailor their own meaning, but with Ogre Battle, I can't easily do that. There's just so much going on here. Between the eccentric plot, outlandish production, I just think it kind of cancels itself out to a certain degree. Honestly, I couldn't remember the song after it was over. I had completely disengaged from it. You know, even the loser in the end stuck in my head more. So, you know, despite how Ogre Battle starts off Side Black, it ultimately gets lost in the shuffle for me. Someday One Day is a mild-mannered, jangling tour de force that isn't as flashy as the other songs on the album, but is reflective and surprisingly powerful for all of its quietness. While Brian's voice quivered a bit, I think his timbre fits nicely. At this point, it doesn't seem like he's entirely comfortable being in the vocal lead, which I think gives the song that much more honest charm. Meanwhile, the harmonies during the refrain were nice. On the surface, Someday One Day may seem to disrupt the energy of the album, not being as commanding as most of the other tracks, but it has enough of a dusky moodiness to justifiably dwell here. Seven Seas Awry being represented on both this and Queen 1973 is interesting. The song seems to perform the same duties on both albums, but does it in a more grandiose way here. It manages to bring together the best ideas of Side Black while compressing them into like this catchy 3-minute rock-inspired pop song. Furthermore, I must shout out Roger's church-like harmonies, which were a standout aspect of it. It's arguably the catchiest song on the album, and it is an essential listen. Fairyfella's Masterstroke is a cool example of art-inspiring art, since it was said to be written after Freddie saw the painting of the same name. And typical of Freddie, he turns it into another song in his enchanted genre. This one was a real surprise and a gem to come across. Instrumentally, it sets the scene perfectly. The crazy lyrics, the unbelievable harpsichord, the vocals, the melody lines, the harmonies. This is one of the most inspired and innovative songs I've ever heard.
Why did you have to leave me? Why did you deceive me? Send me to the path of nevermore.
Nevermore is an exhilarating miniature ballad and is one of the two emotional climaxes of the album. Its minute or so of calm and enjoyable melodies is decidedly soothing. Perfectly produced, it's paradoxically one of the most thrilling songs on the album with its grand classical arrangement and sophisticated theme. The vocals are perfect and showcase what excellent singers these guys could be. I just wish it lasted longer. You know, that's the downside. Nevermore leaves you wanting more, but the title told us that that was never going to happen.
The word goes around from father to son to son.
Father to Son is buoyantly sentimental and wholly endearing. Every man can relate to this song on some level. The full circle premise of the son becoming the father and passing on what he learned from his own father is charming. The sincerity of the lyrics combined with Freddie's jubilant delivery and great melodies makes this a feel-good song on multiple levels. Moreover, it brilliantly balances the band's tendencies toward loud excess with sublime passages of prog perfection. White Queen is the heart of Queen 2. Emotional and haunting, the song does an outstanding job of incorporating the feeling of mystery and longing that comes with unrequited love or affection. The soft and gentle yet full-body musicality is mesmerizing. Of all the songs on the album, this one soars the most. Freddie's mild and spiraling vocals inspire goosebumps. My only gripe with it is that I think it could have been even better had it been a duet between Freddie and Brian. You know, with Brian having wrote such a powerful song, and since it was apparently semi-autobiographical, I think it would have been nice to have his voice represented somewhere on it.
I'll be your bad boy, I'll do the march of the Black Queen.
So you already know, the March of the Black Queen is the true headliner of Queen 2. It's bombastic, chaotic, lengthy, gothic, irrational, and evocative. The song is the musical equivalent of dissociative identity disorder, with Freddie channeling every side of his artistic personality to add to the recipe. The vocal and guitar parts combine this brash, tranquil, soft, heavy, and unbelievably creative riffs. Just thinking about the song gives me goosebumps. Lyrically, it's so fragmented and surreal that there's no application of logic to it, which makes it that much more fascinating. The virtuosic polyrhythms and the cohesion of its different sections is spellbinding, and it seems to give an overall summary of everything Queen can do. So I get the feeling that Queen 2 is probably the album that Queen wanted to make with their debut, but they just weren't there yet. You can pretty much hear how they got themselves together here for the production. It's much more organized and balanced with a clearer focus on concept. So the White Side is the soul of the album. The material is thought-provoking, introspective, moving, and genuine. With more understated prog rock tendencies, it pushes the human sentiment to the anterior while still being relatable to the straight-ahead rock fan and casual listener. Again, Brian's extravagant guitar arrangements were first class. Songs like Father to Son and White Queen furthermore temper Freddie from becoming too submersed in the wired and imaginative shenanigans of Side Black. In the end, Side White is very important. Not only does it warm the listener up for the inventive second half, but it also humanizes the album. The Black Side is an abstract and theoretical work of genius, artful, garish, and fantastical, with Freddie coming off as like a charmingly madcap master of ceremonies, touching on a multitude of styles from heavy metal to art rock to piano vocal to pop rock. It's also laced with intricate lyrics and remarkable storytelling. What makes it even more genius is how the sonic mood seamlessly flows from song to song, with each new track borrowing from the energy of the previous one to build its own. This leads me to believe that Side Black may be intended as one structure, perhaps not just a set of segues and transitions, but a single march through a particular fantasy land and a particular set of emotions. Overall, this side is very novel, regal, and thrilling. As was the case with their first album, Brian's material takes on the spirit of a pensive everyman with more relatable topics, while Freddie's material was more cheeky, unusual, and long-winded. Once again, I found myself more intrigued by Freddie's contributions overall. His songs here are structurally complex, fascinating, lively, and more exciting. It seems heavily influenced by his childhood and upbringing. You know, the culture that he was probably exposed to while attending boarding school seems to reverberate in his musical approach. That said, some of Brian's songs had a tendency of quietly sidestepping Freddie's carnival-like shenanigans and landing at a higher position for me, just by virtue of their sincerity. So there exists an interesting dichotomy going on with Queen 2. I more enjoyed Freddie's work as a collective body, while Brian's tended to win me over on a more individual level, if that makes any sense. So to sum up, Brian's songs on this album are far more accessible than Freddie's theatrical grandeur, but those more invested in Queen fandom will find the Black Side more rewarding. Admittedly, not everything works comfortably. There are moments where things get a little too ambitious or too melodramatic, ultimately resulting in either premature burnout or things becoming too overextended. There aren't as many sonic transitions on the music of Queen 2 as there were on the first album, which was slightly disappointing for me. And I gotta say that John's bass playing tends to be so woven in deeply into the music that it's overwhelmed by the other more obvious attributes, which was also disappointing. Those minor critiques aside, Queen 2 is an overall musical marvel that's grippingly elaborate in structure, a huge blast of musical earnestness on one hand and eccentricity on the other that stands as a brilliantly powerful suite of feelings, themes, and motifs. It's a beast. It's not a march, it's a cavalcade of fury. I know that this is often considered the seminal Queen album, and I get why. Considering the time period that it was created, it can probably be counted as one of the most innovative and interesting albums of all time. Overall, I would give this album a letter grade of an A-. Yeah, this is definitely iPod and playlist worthy, but how do you feel about it? How do you feel about Queen 2? Leave me some comments, like and subscribe, and until next time when I move on to the next album, peace.